greatness of a man and the greatness of a Jew is his power of bechira, of choice, of choosing or rejecting. It's not an easy thing, We got a vernacular, we got a new hippie vernacular, this and that. Do take drugs, don't take drugs. Let the man come and tell me, what does it symbolize, this whole drug business? It's not a question of partaking in a pleasure and not partaking in a pleasure. That's a child talking. The guy I knew would go out and get drunk. The Jewish section, I lived in a section, 58,000 Jews lived there. East New York, there wasn't one bar. 58,000 Jews lived there. A bar, Jews a bar. When I used to pass a bar, I was afraid to look at it. I was afraid to look at that bar. That Jew going to a bar. There was a drunk in our section, 2 drunks. There was Chaim America. A guy used to call him Chaim America. And my mother's mitzvah was that Chaim America, he was an alcoholic, he used to roll around the street. Pesach, he had to be by our Seder. Chaim America didn't trust the bank, so he used to hold his few $100s by my father's shoulder. He was his banker. So he was a sick guy. Everybody knew Chaim America, something was wrong. He was an alcoholic, it's chemical. And there was a baker that used to get plastered, and everybody knew it was a pity. He had nice kids, and a nice wife, and had a business. They knew he was drunk. Jews got and get drunk. I mean, you know what the depression was? Your eyes shouldn't see it. I mean, it was poverty. It was real poverty. My father sold shoes on credit. And if there was a bill to be paid, we used to do a family council. Where do you get the $300 to pay the bill? You know what I mean? But people didn't get drunk. People didn't, you know how old I was when I found out there's such a thing as drugs? Yes, I read Thomas D. Quincy, the English opium eating. I used to be a big reader, when I was a kid. So I knew that theoretically, in the abstract, there was such a thing as drugs. When I was in my late teens, I heard the neighbors talking that there's someone that has a relative who's an ambulance driver for Bethel Hospital that is on drugs. It was to me shocking, scandalous. But you know what the whole thing is? You think we're not discussing now whether it's harmful or not. The whole thing is a breakdown of bechira. The whole thing is not a Jewish phenomenon. A breakdown of the power of choice. Who cares? A Jew wanted to get high. You want to get high? You go to shul, you say Tillin. You didn't see Jews get high on Tillin. I lived in a society, I'll tell you something that's so shocking. When I was 15, I was sitting in shul in the spring and I was learning. It was mincha time. There must have been 75 people in shul in the middle of the week. And I remember the lady, she lived across the street from the shul, runs into the shul, straight up to the Aron Kodesh. The Rav was saying the block, in between Mincha Ma'ariv, he was learning, and Yankiv, the lady opens up the Aron Kodesh, and throws herself on the floor and starts crying, Rebbeinu Shalom, save my child, he has pneumonia. The whole shul kept quiet. She was crying. Those days pneumonia, it was even before sulfur. It was just the sulfur came out. There were no drugs, there were no antibiotics. And pneumonia was as critical the sickness. And she was crying, Rebbeinu Shalom, my kind. Nobody moved. A few tears were shed from the people, And she finished talking to the Aron Kodesh and closed the Aron Kodesh and went out, and the Rav said the Shir later. You don't see that today, this sophisticated world. You don't see such things today. Hi. Saturday afternoon there was high time in shul. What was high time? It was simple Jews. What was simple Jews? I'll tell you what it was. About 15 Jews used to get together. One guy used to say a sentence and tell them, then everybody used to answer the second sentence, for an hour. Most of these people didn't know the meanings of the words. After an hour, these people were all up. Come to our shul when the Rav, the shofar, before the shofar, There must have been 800-900 people in shul. Not religious people. Not religious people. 800-900 people. You hear what I'm telling you? Pushcart peddlers. You know what pushcart peddler means? You never saw it. You weren't born. You were born when there were no more pushcarts. In our block in front of my father's store, there was 3 blocks, and on both sides of the street there were pushcarts. What was in the pushcart? Onions, tomatoes, and pickles. On both sides of the street there were people standing there selling them. You bought things on pushcarts. That was the market. It was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. Pushcart peddlers came to the shul, primitive people. And the Rav went up to the guy was standing there with the shofar, was ready to blow shofar. The Rav went up and put the towels over his head. And there are about 8 sentences that you say before you blow the shofar. One sentence I'll tell you. The Rav used to say, 2, used to cry. About each sentence, 15 minutes. And in the shul, 800-900 people, you couldn't hear people breathe. And what was he crying over? What? Tuf tam v'das lamdeini. Goodness, discretion, and intelligence teach me. Crying. You don't cry. You know what crying means? I don't mean cry. Crying. He collapsed. The Rav collapsed on the thing. Mamish broke down. What was he crying about? And the whole place was standing petrified. Nobody ever took drugs. You can't get that high on drugs. You can't. And that's why when the Rav walked in the street in the summertime, I would walk with him and Jews would be sitting Friday night smoking cigars, because they didn't know better. The Rav came, they everybody hide the cigars. The kids were playing ball, everybody, because they knew that. In our section, everybody knew that the Rav he was really high, the Rav.